The time has come.
I like that.
The time is now for Victoria Stillwell's Positively Podcast. She's a world-renowned dog trainer.
Seen enough dogs today, have you?
She's the host of It's Me or the Dog.
I'm coming to train you.
Along with co-host Holly Ferfer.
You don't play around with that name, do you?
I am a fan of sweaty balls.
She's Victoria Stillwell, and she's ready to go.
This is a lovely way to start the day.
You get the busy bee. I need to trim her whiskers.
I see some poo here.
I feel a little bit better now because I'm the only one who usually feels stupid during the podcast.
Now, let's head to the studio and get this Positively Podcast started.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Positively Podcast. I'm so glad you can join me again this week. And again, I have an amazing guest for you. Her name is Debbie Matthews, and she is the creator of Fern's Law and Vets Get Scanning. And if you don't live in the UK, you might not have heard about this, but keep listening because this is really important stuff. Now, I first met Debbie, I think it was in 2006, when we filmed with her and her lovely husband, Richard, and their two dogs, their two Yorkshire Terriers, Widget and Gizmo. And if you want to see that episode, you can hop on over to the YouTube channel. It's Me or the Dog YouTube channel, where a lot of the episodes are up there now, and see the story. But in a nutshell, Widget and Gizmo had been stolen and recently returned. They'd become very anxious because of their ordeal, and I had gone in to help Debbie and Richard get them back on the right track. But there is much more to this story, and that's why I'm excited to have Debbie here to tell it to you. She is the most amazing lady. I've known her for many, many years. Of course, after we filmed, I kept in contact with her, and since then, she has been on a mission, because that's what it is, and it's not an easy one, to ensure that all vets and rescues, any organization that finds a dog or has a dog in their surgery, scans, that scanning the microchip is compulsory. So without further ado, and to explain it better, welcome Debbie to the podcast.
That's a lovely introduction. Thank you, Victoria.
So could you tell people a little bit about, can we talk about Fern's Law to begin with, and then move back from there?
Okay, well, Fern's Law, I've been campaigning, as you know, for years to try and get the vets to scan and check microchip ID at first presentation. And it's a really hard concept to get over to people, because we've been told for so many years to microchip our pets, that to be responsible pet owners. So everybody always thinks the petition is about microchipping your pet, and it's not. It's about asking the authorities and vets and rescues to check the microchip registration, which we all assume is already being done. Fern was actually a dog who was stolen 7 years ago now, and she was found at the side of the road last year. She'd been dumped. She'd been used for breeding. Very kind man picked her up and took her straight to the vet, and stray dogs do get scanned straight away. So she was scanned, and her owner Jody was phoned, and it was Fern. She went back home, which was absolutely brilliant. The whole of Facebook lit up when Fern was reunited. And when she went to her own vet to have Fern checked over, it turned out that she'd had a medical treatment during that 6 years, which proved our point that if a dog is taken into a vet's, they should be checked, their microchip ID should be checked to make sure pet and owner match. It's as simple as that. So that's why we call it Fern's Law. And we've got a new petition in the UK now, which is just at 36,000 signatures, but we need 100,000 to get to Parliament, but we're positive we're going to do it.
How long do you have to get it up to 100,000 signatures?
We've got until the 4th of September, so we've got another couple of months. So although we should be halfway there by now, so we're pushing. We're really begging people just to sign it for us.
We're going to put the link, if you are in the UK and you we ask you to please sign this petition. We're going to put the link on the podcast page so that you can just click the link and go onto the page and sign the petition. because it's really, really important. Now, you've experienced the loss, or the two of your dogs, Widget and Gizmo, were stolen. So you've experienced what it's like to be a pet owner and have your dogs stolen from you. Could you tell us, the people who are listening from other parts of the world that might not know about your story, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, like back in 2006, it wasn't a big deal to leave your dog in a car. It wasn't a hot day. I'd gone out shopping. I was picking up some cakes to have some tea with my father, who lived not far away. I went into a big store, which was very busy. You could see the car from the car park. There were car washers walking around. It was in May, so it was a nice day. And when I came out to my car, there were two men standing beside it. And as I thought, what are they doing standing there? Widget and Gizmo are going to be going mad. And I started to walk slowly. I started to run because I could see the passenger door of the car was gone. I could just see it had been smashed. I ran, which seemed like to take me forever. You go into slow motion in panic. And when I got to the car, I started shouting to them, "Are my dogs okay? Are my dogs okay?" They looked in the car and they said, "What dogs?" And that moment stays with me today. And the devastation, the guilt, it's your children being stolen, isn't it? I mean, it's the next thing to your own family. Well, they are family members. They are part of us. And the two men said, "Oh, the police want to speak to you to see what you had in the car that was valuable." And spoke to the police sobbing, and they're saying, what did you leave in the car? I said, "My dogs." And they said, "Well, no, what did you leave in the car that was valuable?" And I said, "My dogs." My dogs were in the car. No, did you leave a laptop, a purse, a handbag? I said, "My dogs were in the car." "Oh no, they might have jumped out." I said, "No, they're Yorkshire Terriers, they wouldn't have jumped out of the car." So anyway, well, they said to me, "Well, as it's only dogs, we won't come out." And that was that really from the police. I went into the store, and because my car had to be fixed for me to drive, I had to phone my father up to come and pick me up. But that was the start of this journey. And when I did get a crime reference number, I got a crime reference number because my car had been broken into. I found out that pet theft wasn't a crime in its own right. But car theft is. And I never understood that. I still don't. And we're still trying to change the law of that in England. And hopefully we're going to get there soon. But it's quite devastating, really. I then went online. I found Jane Hayes at Dog Lost, which is a big website which has been going since 2004. And it was back then, if you can remember what 2006 was like on the internet, it was very new. I mean, you didn't have social media or anything. So she was the only place I could find to help. And when I spoke to her, she said, "Oh, well, as they're 7 years old, they're neutered, they'll be sold on quickly." I went, "Great, fantastic. Well, I'll get them back when they go to the vets." And she was the one who told me, "Well, no, vets don't check microchip registration when they get taken in for the first time." And I was horrified then. And today, 14 years on, with all the thefts that we have in the UK, that it still isn't compulsory to check microchips is dreadful. I mean, it's just, I think it's appalling.
It's shocking to me. It's something that should seem so simple. Why is it taking so long for this to be brought into law? Why is compulsory scanning and checking microchips on that first presentation, why is that so difficult?
Well, I've heard every excuse in the book, as you can imagine, over the years, from BVA and Royal College. It's the first thing is that they say they don't have the time. Now, can you imagine telling someone with a stolen dog that you don't have time to check microchips? Can you understand what that sounds like to somebody? I mean, it's just, so now the new excuses are that they don't have the right to tell their members to scan. They can only recommend as best practice. And that's what they've been saying for the last couple of years. So that's why we're now going to the government to add the legislation to the compulsory dog microchipping regulations. And in the UK, they're actually considering making it compulsory to microchip cats. So if they don't sort this out, we've still got the problem. Well, actually, the problem gets worse. It gets a bigger problem with all the cats that are now going to suddenly be microchipped but won't get home. And it's common sense. And they're in a way they're protected because we all assume that the microchipping system is working the way we believe it to be, and it's not.
Tell us, going back to Widget and Gizmo, how did you get them back? And for people in the UK who know Bruce Forsyth, they'll probably remember the campaign. There are the people who are listening outside of the UK and might not know who Bruce Forsyth is. Can you tell us the story? It is truly remarkable that you got Widget and Gizmo back.
Well, after I'd done a lot of stuff with Jane, I think we got about 5,000 posters up in the area. We plastered posters on everything, and we were working our way outwards. I spoke to Jane, and as you said, my father was Bruce Forsyth, very well known in the UK, and he was going to go on television, and this was in a couple of days of them being stolen. And I told Jane, and I said, look, he wants to know, should he mention the dogs? Should he talk about the dogs? And she said, well, I would give it a week, let them be sold on. As they're 7, neutered, let them sell them on. They won't keep them for breeding. They'll just want the cash for them. So give it a week. So we kept quiet. We didn't say anything to the press, although the press did pick the story up because my father came to pick me up in the store and he'd been recognised, obviously. And we said, please give us a week. We just want them to be sold on so that they're safe. And we went with I think it was the Daily Mirror was the first newspaper that we did. That evening we did the BBC News with Natasha Kaplinsky. And then GMTV, a morning programme, picked it up. And they did a live set from the house. And we did an appeal for the dogs. And the first morning, the guy who'd bought Widget was watching. And we got Widget back. The second morning, we had Widget with us, which was just remarkable. And we said, right, the second Yorkie's little, he's naughty, he'll be barking at everything, as you know, Victoria.
Yes.
Anybody else buy a Yorkshire Terrier in the Hayes area? And that morning, the lady who'd bought Gizmo was watching, and we got Gizmo back. And I can't tell you, it was a miracle. I mean, without my father, I would never have known what had happened to them, that's for sure. Their microchips wouldn't have brought them home, but my father did.
And thank goodness for him. I mean, Bruce Forsyth, I grew up watching Bruce Forsyth. He's an absolute legend. He passed away how many years ago now? Was it?
It's just 2 years ago now.
2 years ago he passed away, but he was beloved in the United Kingdom as one of the premier entertainers. He was part of UK folklore. It was he was everything. He was an amazing man.
He's in the Guinness Book of Records for being the longest surviving entertainer on television, I think. Something ridiculous like that.
How many years was he on television?
I'm not sure when he started. I can't even remember how many years it is, but he was Sunday Night at the Palladium was probably in his 20s, late 20s, and he was doing Strictly Come Dancing until 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So just amazing career. He just hit every generation. It was wonderful. Wonderful.
He did, and he was one of that sort of those entertainers to never be repeated, never, because it's almost like you can't get an entertainer like that anymore.
No.
He did everything. He sang, he danced, he did the Generation Game. He was amazing. But then, he's your dad at the end of the day, and he wanted to help his daughter get your dogs back, and thank goodness he did. Now, when they got back to you, how had their behavior changed?
Well, it was quite interesting because I was just talking to someone the other day about this, that Widget was more or less, because he was quite laid back, Widget. He sort of went with the flow. Gizmo was a different kettle of fish. He, when I first got him back, when the lady was holding him and I was dying to grab him back to get hold of him, he just sat and he didn't move a muscle. It was almost like he was saying to me, so why did you let this happen to me? What did you do that for? You know, it was like I could see him thinking, you know, why did that just happen to me? So it took him a bit of time. The first few weeks we were just exhausted. It was like we'd been in a nightmare. And then gradually, as you saw, what happened to me in the UK was that I just shut the curtains. I didn't go out. I was very frightened about walking with them. If I did walk with them, Gizmo would attack anybody with a baseball cap and a rucksack on. Stopping at traffic lights in the car, they would go berserk in the car if anybody walked near the car. Obviously, you know, it was, yes, but instead of me trying, as you told me very nicely, that it was actually my fault because I was continuing the agony for them instead of working to stop it. With your help, I managed to get out the house, open the curtains, drive in the car. You gave me, you know, wonderful years with those boys, and I'll always thank you for that. It was incredible what you did with them.
Well, I mean, it's understandable though that you'd all been through a trauma, and I think part of that sort of that stillness when you first saw him, that stillness was just shut down, and that's what that is a response to a traumatic event, is just shut down. And then the sort of the hibernation, as it were, trying to, and not wanting to go out, not wanting to render yourself vulnerable, because going outside is being more vulnerable to what can happen outside or in the car, that memory of being taken out of the car. So, I mean, I totally understood where you were coming from and how difficult it was for you. And I'm glad that we could work and get you back to where you could become more confident again, and they could become more confident again about being outside and live life again. And so, you know, I can give the information, but it's you who has to do the work, and you did. And so I applaud you for that. Now, after that, after your experience, you then created Vets Get Scanning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it was a couple of months afterwards, and Richard said to me, if there was anything you could change about the system, what would it be? And my one thing would be that if a stolen or missing dog was taken into a vet's with a new owner, that they would be scanned and the microchip checked. It was as simple as that. And I thought it was a fairly simple ask. I didn't think there would be a big problem with it because dog theft wasn't that big then in the UK. You'd heard a few stories, but nothing. With my story, you had the car window being smashed, the dogs were taken, they had been sold on to new owners, and I got them back. So I had a complete story, and I didn't want to let that opportunity go by because it would help so many other people. First of all, telling people not to leave their dogs in cars, which obviously today, you know, an awful lot more people know about, and don't leave them tied up outside shops. But dog thieves don't just take dogs from shops and cars. You know, we've got house break-ins here in the UK. We've got dogs being taken on walks. We've got kennels being broken into. We've had vicious attacks where people have a little puppy that's been taken at knife point. It's big business here now. You know, it's really sad. And all the dogs are microchipped, and they can get home. But if they're sold on to new families, they're not going to get home. You know, they'll just disappear forever. This loophole just takes them and doesn't give them back.
So it's so easy though. If that family that they acquire this dog in some way, they take them to the vet. It's so easy, isn't it, for the vet just to scan and
Easy.
I mean, you would have. I can't comprehend it. I can't comprehend why this is not mandatory. Even before you taking it to the government, that the BVA and the RCVS would not say, look, we require all of our members to do this, period, done, finished.
Well, that's what we want, you know. And the time issue is that what happens is when you scan a dog, the microchip number comes up. You then have to check the database. So that's the time issue for them. But there are vets that are doing it. We've actually got a vet nurse who's got, her dog was stolen just before Christmas, and she gets it, you know, and has pleaded with the vet profession. She had a lovely article in the Vet Times about it. You know, please, can we all start checking microchip registration? It can be done. And there is no excuse. There is just no excuse.
So could we go back to this pet theft debate and pet theft reform? You're working with Dr. Daniel Allen on this, aren't you? And that it is, again, it blows my mind that when Widget and Gizmo were taken, that they didn't seem to be as concerned as, you know, the car break-in or the car this or the did you have something in the car, that they would have it seemed like the animals were they weren't as important. Could you tell me a little bit about pet theft reform and what that means?
Well, our dogs in British law come under their goods and chattels. So if they're stolen, it comes under the Theft Act, and they work out the punishment, if these people are ever caught, by the value of the item that's taken. So our dogs are valued at under £500 as second-hand goods. So if someone does go to court, which we had last year for stealing 2 pugs, he was fined £250 and paid £400 costs, and both dogs are still missing. Now, the government say that the Theft Act is working fine. Well, that doesn't equate to us that that's the proper punishment for someone who's taken dogs, and it's certainly not a deterrent to other thieves. And what we're asking for is a proper deterrent. We want the minimum standard custodial sentence of 2 years. So it stops the crime from happening in the first place. You know, at the moment, there's nothing. It's, if you know, £250 fine. Is it worth stealing a dog?
Absolutely, 100% it is, when you can probably get more money for them.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
So we've just had our second successful petition with that, and we've just made history in Parliament by having the first pet theft debate via Zoom, which was unbelievable. So we're hoping they've put the tape together and they then send that to the minister. So I can't see how the minister can possibly say no. We had Professor John Cooper, QC, the lawyer who knows law, obviously. Dr. Dan, we have Beverly Cuddy on, a lady who's got a stolen dog at the moment. It was one very powerful case put forward. So now we wait to see what response we get. But that was amazing that we made history. Let's hope we get good response from it.
Yeah, I hope you will, and you absolutely should. Now, for Fern's Law, though, we need to get up to 100,000. We need the petition to get up by September to 100,000 signatures. So if you are listening to this, and right now, I want you to go on and I want you to Google Fern's Law UK. If you're outside, well, I think you can only sign the petition if you're in the UK or you're a British citizen. But you go to Fern's Law, Google it, and it will bring you to, it will say sign the petition. It's Parliament. Let me just see, parliament.uk/petitions. If you go into Fern's Law, then it says sign this petition, please sign it and show your support so that we can, there is a law that is passed, legislation is passed, that vets will scan microchips and check on the database that the people who bring these dogs in are, in fact, their family, or, you know, if they have just newly adopted the dog. And we're not saying this every time, is it? We're not saying you have to scan the microchip every single time, but if it's a new client, a new dog brought into the vet, then scan it and look at the database.
Yeah. And we're saying that for dogs that haven't been checked, that they already have on their books, they could check those at their annual health check or vaccination time, because obviously there's thousands and thousands of dogs that are missing that will be with other families. And it's going to be heartbreaking, but this should have been done at the start. If they'd adopted this 14 years ago, then we wouldn't be having this problem.
No, it should have been done. Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe it's been 14 years. You have a website that people can go to find out more information. What is that website?
That's Vets Get Scanning, which is a mouthful for people, but vetsgetscanning.co.uk.
Fantastic. Now, tell us about Widget and Gizmo now. I mean, they've passed on. They lived a long, happy life, didn't they?
Yes, I had Widget. Gizmo died 4 years ago now. He was 15. And Widget died a couple of years before that, but and I still miss them. I think that experience really bonded. I know everybody's always bonded with their dogs, but I see their little faces all the time, you know. With dog theft so bad here, you know, every time somebody's lost a dog, that moment comes back to me. So they're always with me in my head and everything. But now I've got a miniature schnauzer called Pepper, who's a joy. I couldn't go back to Yorkies. They were making me too sad. So we changed breed, and she's lovely. She's just a beautiful dog.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad it had a happy ending. But for a lot of people, it is not. And that's why this law needs to change. We need pet theft reform, and we need Fern's Law to pass in memory of Fern and every other dog that's been stolen, and to help every other person who's had their dog stolen and has gone through the pain that Debbie and Richard went through when Debbie's dogs were stolen. That we need this. So we need you to sign the petition, Fern's Law UK. You have to be a British citizen in order to be able to sign the petition, but we urge you to do this. It needs to get to 100,000 signatures by September to have the chance to be debated in Parliament, whether that's in person or on Zoom. It's probably still going to be on Zoom, but congratulations that you made history with the first Zoom debate. That's amazing.
It was really funny. After we've been through Brexit, a new Parliament, and then now COVID. So we were being pushed down the line so much. I think it was the only thing they could do for us. So we're very grateful to the Petitions Committee for doing that. I
have a friend of mine who is part of our academy. She was walking her dog in an area where she walks her dogs a lot, sort of. It's in the countryside, and a guy comes along on his bicycle and tries to steal her dog. It was a border collie, tried to steal her dog. So I've now heard so many stories of either dogs that have been stolen or dogs that have, people have been walking along and somebody has tried to steal their dog, and it's happening more than you would know. And it's not just in the UK, it is in other countries. Here in the United States, we have a lot of pet theft too. That's one of the reasons why, folks, I do not like electric fences, because it doesn't matter what the companies are saying to you about how great and what freedom for your pet. Electric fences are a thief's best invention, because it's so easy to go onto the property when the dog is in the front yard and to go steal them, because there is no actual solid fence to prevent them. So please, 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 do take care of your pets, and don't make it easy for these thieves to come and take your dogs. So that's Debbie, that's what we have problem here, especially where I live in Atlanta, of people who do have electric fences and leaving their dogs out in the front yard or / garden, and they're getting stolen because there's nothing to prevent a thief from just coming quickly onto the property and taking the dog. So, but this is what the companies aren't telling people.
It's dreadful. Dr. Dan has lots of followers from America, and when we first had the pet theft reform petition, they were saying, oh, we wish we had something like this over here. Then we started the scanning petition, and again they all said, oh, I wish we had something like this. What a great idea. Why isn't it being done? And you do think about other countries adopting this. You do want to keep your pet safe, and wherever your pet is stolen from, whatever country you live in, you want some sort of safeguard to get your pet back, and you want the laws there to stop it from happening in the first place.
If you're in the UK and your dog gets stolen, what can you do?
The first thing if it's been stolen, you phone the police and you get a crime reference number. You must contact the animal warden here in the UK, your local animal warden. We work a lot with Dog Lost, as I said, who were there for me when I lost Widget and Gizmo, doglost.co.uk. Get them on there, and then get on social media. So many times, if a dog has just been stolen or there's a new story, if Facebook gets hold of it and shares that story, so many dogs get back quickly because they're too hot to handle. But some people are in for the long haul, and you need to have all the crime reference number, the warden, social media, poster your area, because a lot of dogs are taken for the reward or for ransom. So once they see your posters come up, they might call you and say, oh, I think I know someone who's got your dog, or I've just bought your dog off someone. You just want your dog back. So just get the information out there, poster everything in sight.
Debbie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Really important information, and thank you for all the work you were doing. And I support you 100%. And I pray that that pet theft reform passes and Fern's Law passes, and that after 14 years that you will that vets will now, all vets, it will now be mandatory that on that first presentation that they check, and then check that they scan and then check the database. So for everybody, vetsgetscanning.co.uk, you can find out more information. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity and for raising awareness, Victoria. Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody. I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. Really important information, and thank you again. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and happy, and I will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively podcast. For more information, visit positively.com. Get connected on Facebook and YouTube as Victoria Stilwell, or follow her on Twitter @VictoriaS. Be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps to change dogs' lives positively.